Welcome to the tutorial on Class A output stage. A power amplifier is an amplifier with a high power output stage, and in the design of the output stage we prefer the BJTs than the MOSFETs as they can handle much larger currents. So the type of the output stage that we are looking into is a Class A. Here we have specified the output stage according to the collector current waveform that results when an input signal is applied to the circuit. So if you observe this particular waveform, in this particular Class A stage, we have biased at a current IC represented as small IC having an amplitude which is greater than IC cap. So this IC cap basically corresponds to the peak value of, that is, the collector current. So in the Class A, the transistor will conduct for an entire cycle of the input signal, and the conduction angle, as you can observe, is 360 degree. So if I have to represent the Class A considering the quiescent point on the DC load line, you can see that in the Class A power amplifiers, the quiescent point is located at the center of the DC load line. So the output signal varies for a full cycle of the input voltage. So you can see that the input voltage is given, and this is the output current which is represented as IC, and the variation is for the complete one cycle, that is 360 degree. The input voltage is, so in this graph of IC versus VC, you can observe that the waveform for the output current IC is also completely 360 degree. Even the variation in VCE is also 360 degree, and the value of current is also 360 degree. Main reason because the Q point lies in the center of the DC load line. So you have the same thing being repeated here, the waveforms for the input current IB, the output current IC, and VCE. VCEQ, ICQ and IBQ correspond to the current and the voltages at the Q point. Now coming to obtaining the transfer characteristics of the Class A output stage. So here we have a circuit, that is a Class A circuit, wherein we make use of an emitter follower mainly because of its low output resistance. If you look at this particular circuit, you would have observed that this circuit is little different when compared to the normal emitter follower circuits that we have seen earlier. So you have two transistors here, Q1 and Q2. One of the transistors, Q1, is given with applied with an input voltage Vi, whereas the transistor Q2 is applied with a resistance R connected to ground, and you also have a diode which is represented as Q3, and the supply is dual supply, so plus VCC and minus VEE. Now why we have considered this circuit instead of a simple emitter follower circuit is because a transistor Q2, a resistance R and a diode Q3. This is included in this particular circuit just to ensure that the circuit operates at sufficient current and does not cause any distortion on the transients because of the presence of the capacitance on the emitter. One of the common capacitances that can be present is the collector to substrate capacitance of the current source, which is supplying the emitter current. And if sufficient voltage on the current source is available, it would be a good idea to insert a resistor. That is why we have included a resistor here in series in order to isolate this collector capacitance of the current source. So this resistor will not stop the emitter from switching off at large negative edges, but will help in current spiking on positive edges. So just to eliminate the collector capacitance of the current source, we have included a resistance and a diode. So moving on, we have the emitter follower with the transistor Q1 and a transistor Q2, and this emitter follower, that is with transistor Q1, is biased with a constant current I supplied by the transistor Q2. So I can write IE1 to be equal to the sum of the current I plus IL. that is obtained by applying KCL to this particular node. The bias current I must be larger than the largest, that is the negative load current. Otherwise, your transistor Q1 will cut off and the class A operation will no longer be maintained. So, we will look at the transfer characteristics of the emitter follower and derive the equations. So, if you look at the transfer characteristics of the emitter follower, we have the output voltage, that is the output voltage V out, to be equal to Vi minus VBE1. So that is represented as equation number 1, where this voltage VBE1 depends upon the emitter current IE1 and on the load current IL. So if we neglect the VBE1 voltage, because this voltage will have very small changes, so neglecting this voltage VBE1, the positive limit of the linear region is determined by the saturation of the transistor Q1, which is given by V out maximum to be equal to VCC minus VCE1 saturation, and this is named as equation number 2. So the maximum limitation, as you can see here, the positive limit of the linear region will be determined by VCC minus VCE1 sat. In the negative direction, depending upon the values of the current I and the load resistance RL, the limit of the linear region is determined by either Q1 turning off, that is V out minimum will be equal to minus I into RL, or by Q2 saturating. So I have named the V out minimum value to be equal to equation number 3, that is this linear region, and if Q2 is saturating, then I have the minimum value to be equal to minus VCC plus VCE2 sat, and the absolutely lowest or the most negative output voltage, that is as in this particular equation number 4, is achieved provided that the bias current I is greater than the magnitude of the corresponding load current. So I need to have the value of current I to be greater than minus VCC plus VCE2 sat divided by RL, which is denoted as equation number 5. So you can see that the maximum upper limit for the output voltage is obtained by transistor Q1 saturating. The lower limit is obtained by either transistor Q1 turning off, or you can also obtain the value with Q2 saturating. That is this particular point. Now coming to the signal waveforms. So let us consider that the emitter follower circuit for a sine wave input, and we know that I should be greater than, or let me consider equal to, the magnitude of VCC plus VC sat by RL in general. So if we neglect this value of VC sat, and if the bias current I is properly selected, so the output voltage V out will swing from minus VCC to plus VCC, with the quiescent value being at 0, which we have seen in the graph earlier, that is in this particular graph. You can see the quiescent value exactly at 0. So the corresponding waveform will be denoted as shown in the figure A, and the equation for this will be given as VCE1 to be equal to VCC minus V out, which is denoted as equation number 2 here. So you can see this is the corresponding waveform wherein the output voltage swings from minus VC to plus VCC when the quiescent point is at 0, and VCE1 is obtained as VCC minus V out. The bias current I is selected to allow a maximum negative load current of VCC by RL, denoted as equation number 3. So we have seen the waveform A wherein the quiescent point was at 0. But now when we compute VC1 to be equal to VCC minus V out, this becomes equation number 2, and the corresponding waveform for this particular equation will be with the origin at VCC and the waveform swinging from 0 to 2 VCC. So if the bias current I is selected in such a way to allow the maximum negative load current of VCC by RL, that is I is equal to VCC by RL, denoted in equation number 3, then the collector current of Q1 will be as shown in the figure C. So you can see that because VC1 was shifted, the collector current also will shift from its origin value to have the origin at I, and the swing is from 0 to 2I. So lastly, if you want to find out the instantaneous power dissipation in the transistor Q1, that is equal to VC1 into IC1. And you can see here the total swing is 0 to 2 VCC, and here it is 0 to 2I. And that is why when we compute it as VC1 into IC1, and the value will be equal to VCC into I, which is denoted as equation number 4. Now coming to the power dissipation. The maximum instantaneous power dissipation in Q1 is VCC into I, which is denoted in this particular graph, and PD1 is equal to VC1 into IC1, which we have seen. And this VCC into I is equal to the power dissipation in the transistor Q1 when we do not apply any input voltage, that is the quiescent power dissipation. So thus this emitter follower transistor dissipates the large amount of power when the output voltage is 0, because when input is not applied, output also will be equal to 0. So the power dissipation in Q1 will depend upon the value of RL, and considering when RL is equal to infinite, that is open circuited, that is output open circuited, we will have the collector current IC1, which is equal to I, to be a constant value, and the instantaneous power dissipation in Q1 will depend upon the instantaneous value of Vout. So the maximum power dissipation will occur when Vout is equal to minus VCC, and here VCE1 in this case is equal to maximum of 2 VCC. So we have PD1 to be equal to 2 VCC into I, and the average power dissipation in Q1 is equal to VCC into I. When RL is equal to 0, that is the positive input voltage, will result in IL to be equal to infinity. And practically what happens is large current will flow through the transistor Q1, and if short circuit condition occurs, it will result in large power dissipation in the Q1, which will raise the junction temperature beyond the specified maximum value, causing the transistor Q1 to burn up. So to guard against such situation, the output stages are usually equipped with short circuit protection. And also considering the transistor Q2, the transistor Q2 conducts a constant current I and a maximum value of VCE2, which is equal to 2 times VCC. So the maximum instantaneous power dissipation in Q2 will be equal to 2 VCC into I. So I can write PD2 to be equal to 2 VCC into I, and the maximum will occur when output voltage Vout is equal to VCC. So the average power dissipation in Q2 will be equal to VCC into I. So the same equations whichever we have derived for the transistor Q1 will be applicable for the transistor Q2. Next is power conversion efficiency, which is denoted as eta. So this is defined as the ratio of the load power divided by the supply power, that is PL by PS, and the peak value of voltage is denoted as V0 cap. For an emitter follower, if the output voltage is a sinusoid with the peak value of Vout cap, the average load power will be computed as PL to be equal to the peak value divided by square root the whole square, that is, this is the RMS value. So the RMS value divided by RL. Since it is RMS, that is why we do peak value divided by root 2 divided by RL, which gives us a value of 1 by 2 into Vout cap the whole square divided by RL, which is named as equation number 2. And since the transistor Q2 has a constant current I, the power that is drawn from the negative supply is VCC into I. And the average current in Q1 is equal to I, and thus the average power which is drawn from the positive supply is also equal to VCC into I. That we have seen here. Average power dissipation in Q1 is VCC into I. If you are considering the transistor Q2, this is also equal to VCC into I. So if I am supposed to consider the total average power, supply power, I have PS to be equal to 2 VCC into I. That is because of the transistor Q1 and transistor Q2. So that when you add up, it becomes 2 VCC into I. So if I am going to substitute equation number 2 and equation number 3 in equation number 1, I get the value of the power conversion efficiency to be equal to 1 by 4 V naught cap divided by IRL into V naught cap divided by VCC. And since V naught cap, the peak value is equal to or less than VCC and V naught cap is equal to I into RL, I can write this equation as eta is equal to VCC into VCC divided by VCC into VCC multiplied with 4. So 1 by 4 into 100 gives me a value of 25%. So since efficiency is 25%, which is low, therefore the class A outputs rarely used in high power applications. It is usually or achieved in practice in the range of 10 to 20%.